getting that word out about it, like the bike doesn't have to be like the mode of transportation you use every day, but your car doesn't need to be either, right? So having choices and making folks aware that we do have choices is really what I try to project.
Welcome to That's Her Problem, the podcast where women who lead, connect, and rewrite the rules get real about building community. The challenges we face aren't always the same as everyone else's. But here's the truth. A city that's good for women is good for everyone. I'm your host, Patty Weens. If you're watching this episode in video format, I apologize for the janky setup, this light here for the intro and the outro. As I mentioned previously, we are in the middle of moving and I haven't set up a proper studio space, and I can just hear Ian telling me how awful this lighting is. And yes, it is, but such is the life of a showgirl. Thankfully, you're not here for how I look or even how I sound. You're here because my guests are awesome and you are awesome. But let's address the showgirl in the room. I know what you're thinking. How could Taylor Swift announce her new album in the New Heights podcast instead of right here on my podcast? Friends, it's been a tough week. I mean, is anyone even listening to my podcast anymore? If you're still here, please know that I appreciate you and I love it that you're still interested in what women have to say. You know, women other than Taylor Swift. I know you love her too. The show must go on, and as the eldest daughter, I take that responsibility seriously. If you would like to support this podcast, please consider joining my Patreon fans for as little as $5 Canadian per month. What do you get? Well, you get to support me and you get to listen to each episode one day early. Just go to pattybikes.com/podcast and click on the Patreon link from there. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter to gain access to the exclusive free Discord server while we'll be planning some online get-together soon. I would also love to get a voice memo from you letting me know what you're thinking of the episodes so far. You can also do that from the link at pattybikes.com/podcast. This week on the podcast, we speak with Vivian Ortiz, the bicycle mayor of Boston. Vivian's mission is to get more Black and Latina women riding bikes in her city. Hear the story of how she's been given the nickname of That Bike Lady and how her joyful enthusiasm is infectious, like her laughter. Vivian Ortiz, welcome to That's Her Problem. How are you today?
Oh, I'm just fine. It's a nice day here in Boston. Every day we never know what the weather's going to be like, but today it's a little cloudy and not terribly hot, so I'm happy.
Great. Yeah, it seems like every day the weather is a surprise to us too. We've been having a lot of fires in Manitoba, so we haven't even been able to get outside a lot, which sucks. But, you know, this is the reality we live in.
The effects of not maybe the ones in Manitoba, but we are feeling the effects of the fires that are happening, I guess, in other parts. And so the air quality index tends to be a little bit higher than what it used to be a couple of years ago. So
yes, and today we're getting some much needed rain, which canceled one of my group rides, but it gave me time to be here with you. So I'm not going to complain.
We've had sprinkles here too, but anyway, all right.
So, you know, one of the things that I have a friend who's a composer, a musician, and he always says that he doesn't create the songs find him. And I'm starting to find out from all of these talks with women that they don't find the bicycle finds them. And I would love to hear, you are the bicycle mayor of Boston. You're in Boston right now. And I'd love to hear your story of how the bicycle found you.
I am an Army brat, and so we had a bicycle that my brother, sister, and I shared when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. As a military family, not everything moves with you. So I don't remember what happened to the bike. I left El Paso, El Paso, Texas, my hometown, to go to grad school in New York City. And it was 18 years ago, Memorial Day weekend, that I became car free when I moved to New York City, because why would I have a car? So I learned how to use public transportation living there. And then when I moved to Boston, a friend came to visit. We went to Martha's Vineyard. We rented bikes. I didn't know how to stop. The balance was off. It was like, I'm older now. I'm afraid I'm going to fall. So this is the part that I just don't get. I Googled learn to ride and found the city of Boston's free program. At that time, it was a program only for women. And this was August of 2014 that I attended the class. And it was mostly to learn how to balance because I just couldn't. Oh, timeout. When I was in Martha's Vineyard and I didn't know how to stop, so I stopped on this like guardrail next to the road or whatever. And so then, came here, learned how to bike, was given a bike from somebody and just fell in love with it. And then leaving my house was difficult though, because I live in a community where there aren't a lot of people who are riding bikes. So just going out onto the road was terrifying. So I was very, very fortunate that the bike community, and I say it's like they immediately respond to the fact that we've got another one, right? So they I was really spoiled. I had a friend and then a friend of his, and he had gotten the bike bug. Alex had gotten the bike bug a couple of years before me. So they would actually come to my house in the evening and we would go on rides. And I had a 3-speed. And Rob, the friend, was always just like, oh my God, why is she going so slow? That's how I started. Alex invited me to go to a Boston Bike Party, which used to be the last Friday of every month. And like hundreds of people would get together at the same location, starting location. And we do 7-8 mile rides with music and all that stuff. And I absolutely loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But then that was the most I could ride at that point because I was still terrified to ride in my neighborhood. And then progressing after that, I got more comfortable. I became a league cycling instructor. So then now, I know how to ride on the street and what it is that I need to look for. So it all started at that class in 2014. That's how it all started.
That's amazing.
I didn't have a car already, right? I had gone carless. So I did everything here on our public transportation system. Still doing a lot of that when I was learning how to ride because I was scared. And then I learned how to put my bike on the bus. And that made it a lot easier for me because it's my gut that tells me, folks are a little too aggressive out here. And I don't know if you've ever been to Boston, but I've had a driver's license since I was 17 and I'm 61. So I do not drive here because it's almost this badge of honor to drive aggressively and not necessarily using all of the equipment that's in the vehicle to let other drivers know what you're doing. So I try to avoid it as much as possible because it really, really makes me anxious when I'm driving here. So.
Yeah, I'm finding that here too, that it feels like it's getting more and more aggressive every day too. I'm not sure if it's just the level of stress that people are under, which then puts us in a difficult position, especially I find as women. We are more susceptible to feeling like we're being targeted in this aggression.
Yeah.
Do you find that's the same or doesn't matter? As long as you're on a bike, you're like...
In the beginning, it did. Okay. And that was when I was riding in my neighborhood close by and getting a little more comfortable biking on one of the major streets. What I would encounter was men saying, "Oh, mommy, that's great. You're getting exercise." And I immediately would turn around and say, "Excuse me, this is my transportation." And
I'm not your mommy.
one of the benefits is that I do get my exercise. When I got more comfortable riding on the street, people yelling at me, cussing at me, telling me, get the hell off the street and worse. And then after a while, that kind of seemed to dissipate. So I don't get that anymore. And even when I was doing my commute to work, the aggressiveness of these trucks that left at the same time. People don't get it. It's like we're commuting at the same time with the same group of people because we're all going to the same place that we need to get to at the same time. So after a while, because I was doing the route every day, they started picking up on okay, she's not going anywhere, so we should probably give her a little bit more space, right?
Yeah,
So honestly,
right.
that was one of the things that made me more comfortable. And I tell my neighbors and other folks that are interested in riding, you don't have to ride on the street. You can ride for recreation. But if you do get to the point that you're comfortable, please ride on the street because that's the only way that we get the drivers to feel comfortable sharing the space with us, okay? There's still going to be
Absolutely.
some aggressiveness, but the fact that they're understanding that they need to move over a little bit, that's what I have found has improved over time, and the fact that there was a consistency and the fact that we were traveling at the same time.
It's interesting you say that. I was talking to our friend Patty Baker from
Hmm.
Atlanta,
Right.
and she said that they made it legal to ride on the sidewalk in Atlanta because they don't want to take space away from cars. But she rides on the sidewalk and pays a 40% tax on time. On her time. It takes 40% longer to arrive places. So it's not money that she's paying with time because it takes
Right.
longer when you ride on the sidewalk. You have to be more mindful of driveways because drivers aren't looking for bikes on the sidewalk. They're looking for vehicles on the road.
This is what I tell folks. I am confident riding on the street, but I'm never comfortable because I was walking much, before I started riding a bike, I would pay attention to what was happening on the sidewalks and things like that. So, um, it is difficult. I have a bell. I always let the people know that I'm coming because I would not want to be surprised. And when I'm teaching folks, I always say that to them as well. Please make sure that you let the folks that are on the sidewalk or even on the trail with you know that you're coming from behind. So,
I agree. I agree 100%. You said before that you said something that really resonates with me.
mhm.
The bike people realized, oh, we got one more. And now you're that person. You're that bike lady, right? Is that your handle? Is that bike
Yes, it is.
lady?
It is. It is.
Tell me that story.
Oh, this is a fun one. So, um, we have a major, major thoroughfare. It's called Blue Hill Ave, and just it's so full of cars, and the buses run late. And I was not comfortable riding on Blue Hill Ave. Yet there had been a campaign, and this was in 2015, where our public health commission and the city of Boston's transportation department, I was working on a federal grant with neighbors here in Mattapan, and I was on a billboard. It said, I bike Boston. That was the whole theme. I was one of 7 Black or Latino spokesmodels for bikes, right? So the project was done, and all of a sudden they had wrapped the buses with the same, like billboardy thing. And it was like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. We didn't know that. And it kind of became fun because I knew the other people that were on the bus, so I would take a picture and say, hey, Farah, I just saw you. Jeremy, I just saw you. I'm on Blue Hill Ave and I'm waiting for the bus because I was not comfortable to ride. And when I got on the bus driver says to me, wait, are you that bike lady? That's how that became, right? So yeah, it was kind of fun. So that's why I am.
You said that, you were sort of taken in by the bike community and they were teaching you how to ride. And now you are part of a movement that teaches Black and Latina women how to ride bikes. And what is the impact that is having in your community?
The same program that I learned in, the city's program 11 years ago, I promote that program all the time. And it's funny because I do run into people on the trail and they ask me, when are you going to start your bike classes? And I'm like, they're not my bike classes. They're the city's bike classes. But because I learned how to ride there and I saw the similarity that the other students were close to my age and they looked like me, right? So I continued going and I try to go to as many of the classes as I can. But what I've done to encourage them to continue biking is the trail that is behind my house. I invite them to come and ride with me there. They're called Monday night rides. And Blue Bikes, which is our bike share here, when I first did it, I was like, I reached out to Blue Bikes because I would ask my neighbors, come and ride with me. Oh, I don't have a bike. Okay. So then I did it with a couple of neighbors first, and then I said, no, I need the 24-hour pass because the regular pass is like 30 minutes. So that means you go 15 minutes out and back. And that wasn't going to be enough time. So I started it on Monday nights for just the month of April for the 30 days of biking, this challenge that I've been participating in for some time. When we got to the end of April, the folks that had come every Monday were like, wait, we have to stop? And we did that honestly until October. The trail is not lit because it is a state park, and that was the reason why. Because of the fact that it was starting to get darker earlier. And, we had a whole system like the person with the brightest white light in the front and the person with the. So we do like this little train of all of us in there. So that's where I got started inviting folks to come and ride with me. So now I still continue going to I just went to one on Thursday night, the women's Learn to Ride. It's now expanded. They have classes also for all adults. But I really prefer the women's Learn. I feel that I'm able to reach them better than I could perhaps the entire population because of the women are closer to my age and all of the instructors have been riding bikes since they were 8 or 9. So they don't know what it's like to sit on a saddle for the first time when you're older. And my whole thing is building community so that these folks will meet each other and then I don't have to do this every Monday night for the rest of my life, right? Now, to be honest, how much biking they do outside of that, I'm hoping that's going to change now because our Mayor Wu, she rides a bike herself. We started this discount pass program for the bike share. So it's like $60 a year to have a membership if you've never had one.
Wow.
Regularly, it's $140. And then if you receive any type of assistance, you can get it for $5 a year. So I'm just telling everybody and their mother, you should just get a Blue Bike membership, right? Because, these bikes are all really, the idea is that last mile, like if you're taking the bus, that short distance is really what they were meant for. These are not like, let's go out for a 7-mile ride. So I've been talking to my neighbors about, like, I don't have to be here all the time. You're already comfortable. You use the bike. I'm using the same bike that they would have a membership for. Just get a membership because you can just go down the street to the grocery store, for them to start realizing not every trip has to be done in a car. So
one of the things that we always talk about here is that there's the hardware and the software of riding bikes. The hardware being the bike lanes, and in your case, also the bike share, which is really helpful. And the software is what you're providing. You're taking them on trails and you're creating that community and getting them used to being on the road, even on the street or on the trails, and just feeling safe around
right.
cars and drivers. You also teach. You were telling me you teach at a school.
Oh yeah. So I worked with the Safe Routes to School program for 5.5 years. It's a federally funded program. Many states around the country do have it. And the idea is to get more kids walking and biking. Boston, where I live, does not have neighborhood schools. So many kids are not walking. It's not possible for them to walk and bike because they live in it's a lottery thing and they live in another neighborhood. So they have to come on the bus. Right. But so I for the time that I lived there, it was like I did the least amount of work in the city in which I live. I had other communities outside of Boston. And like I said, pedestrian safety for me was always much more important. Anyway, this year I left my job last July. I was just frustrated because I wasn't spending enough time on the kids and working in front of the kids. And there's just this idea that infrastructure saves everything. And yes, it's good, but it takes a long time and it takes a lot of money. And even when it's there, folks don't necessarily know how to use it. So we have to do a lot. This is a long process to to change that mind. I have kids that live walking distance, like a 5-minute walk from their house. And I talk to the kids in the neighborhood, and one of them said to me, "Oh no, I get driven." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I'm going to get hit by a car." And we need to change that. The city of Boston brought back their Learn to Bike, it's the youth cycling program, into the schools in Boston. I've worked at probably 4 schools, and it's been wonderful. Seeing the kindergartners, they're the ones that are just fearless. But it's really a shame to see a 6th grader that doesn't know how to ride a bicycle. So all of these bike lanes and all of these things that the city is investing in, if we just say, okay, we taught you how, goodbye, figure it out on your own, it's not enough.
And it's a little selfish, too, when you think about it, because the more people that we get riding their bikes, using these bike lanes, and more people using means more pressure. One of the things that Sarah Goodyear mentioned when I was talking to her is the more people that are riding, the more the drivers are getting used to them. One of the questions that I was going to ask you is, why do you think we should have safer spaces for people to ride bikes?
Because safer spaces for people to move is really the way I look at it, right? Because if the sidewalk is not in the best condition, if it's, not clean during snowstorms. So we have folks that are in wheelchairs that are using the bike lanes because they feel more comfortable there. Or the sidewalk may just have too much stuff on it. There may be too much overgrowth. There's trash day. All of those things affect people's ability to get where they're wanting to get to or desire, right? I don't want to walk on Wednesday mornings on the sidewalk where everybody's trash is out there, right? So having that infrastructure makes it better for all the road users because we have a dedicated space. So the driver's not trying to figure out, wait a minute, this person that's in front of me, what are they doing? I remember when I was driving in El Paso, every once in a while I would see somebody in a bike lane, and I remember getting taught, if you see somebody riding, or even if it's not on a bike lane, I immediately move to the other lane. That culture of sharing the space is just not instinctive to a lot of folks here. The education that comes along as we're changing the settings is the way that I see that everyone is going to take part in making sure that we can travel however we want to. The fact that we have a commuter rail, I'm able to put my bicycle on it at any time. So in the morning, if it's like rush hour and I don't want to deal with that, my bike goes on the commuter rail. And then at the end of the day or whenever I'm heading back, I can ride at my own pace at the time that I feel most comfortable. So getting that word out about it, like the bike doesn't have to be like the mode of transportation you use every day. But your car doesn't need to be either, right? So having choices and making folks aware that we do have choices is really what I try to project. Because I'm not going to say, get rid of your car. Do you have to use your car for every single trip, right? And one of the ways that I try to get folks to be more aware of that is where we have had a project here in my neighborhood that's going to get started. I did it a couple of years ago with folks that were running for office. So I had them come out and experience what it's like to just be on the sidewalk as these people are flying by. And I'm like, you can feel it in the air. I can hear the car, but I can feel that it's different, right? If you're only in a car, you have no idea what that experience is like. If you're stuck in traffic because you're on a bus, and if you're in a car and you're upset because these buses are making it harder for you to get there, no, it's not them, it's you. So you need to get on a bus during rush hour so you can understand what that feels like. I challenge people to do that all the time. There's got to be some give and take, all right? We're not building more parking. So you need to start thinking of how you're going to change your mode of transportation as well.
I find that if we just provide options, a lot of people might not want to drive. One of my guests on the show, another Sarah, said she was driving to work and was stuck in traffic all the time and kept seeing these people on bikes right beside her, just zooming by. And she decided that she was going to be one of those people on bikes instead of getting angry at them. She said, you know what? These guys have got it figured out. So maybe we are influencing 1 or 2 people to think, this seems smarter than what
Yeah.
I'm doing and cheaper and better and more fun. And then the added bonus that I tell people is that you're going to notice how much happier you're going to be. And that's the thing that you can lead with, but people don't believe it until they try.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, the 82-year-old woman who lives a couple of, no, maybe not 82, late 70s. When she came out to do one of the Monday night rides, and she said her husband was like, you better not get hurt, right? So I love taking the video of her because she hadn't ridden a bike in probably 20 years. So, she hasn't come back, but she knows that she can pull that bike if she wants to, right? The city just finished a program, and now the state is doing one where they're giving vouchers for folks to get e-bikes, right? So if you're over 60, if you have a disability or you're very low income. So I worked closely with the city at mobile markets to talk to folks about, that, trying to see if they wanted to go for that. But my colleague that was working with me was like, like just giving him the information about e-bikes. And I was like, wait, do you know how to ride a bicycle? And I found so many that did, but they hadn't ridden in a very long time. And so then I said, come to this, get comfortable, because I don't want the first time that you ride a bike after not having ridden a bike to be on an e-bike. Okay. And then I also tell them, but our system does have e-bikes on it, right? So there's that option for you to do that. So there's a lot that's happening to encourage people to change the way that they're traveling. It's just there's a lot of work that needs to happen with the folks that are just against it and to better understand it. So I tell folks I'm the bike mayor mostly because I talk to people every day about biking. Like when I'm running late and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to get there quickly on the bike or whatever, I'll call an Uber, right? And I ask the whole time I'm talking to them about biking. And every time that our ride ends, they're like, thank you so much. You gave me a perspective that I did not even know.
Mm.
And so my thing is, if all of us could just do that, then that person did not experience like what it is like for me to bike on the road, but that person got to hear about when I did my commute to work. There were 18 different points along my route that I had to be really extra careful at because I didn't know what a driver was going to do.
I also believe that it's really important to keep talking about the benefits of cycling and why we choose to cycle and what we expect on the road and what the rights are, because there are people who are watching, and even though they will never ride a bike, they're learning from you. I've had friends who said to me, I'm never going to ride a bike anywhere. I'm never going to ride a bike to work. But when I see a cyclist, and now I'm more respectful because of everything that you're always talking about.
Right.
So that is sometimes what it looks like to have a seat at the table. Maybe
Yes.
we don't always have a seat at the table with City Hall, but we have a seat at the table if we set our own table and invite our friends around it. What does
Yeah.
it mean to you to have a seat at the table, Vivian?
Well, I am extremely fortunate. Our parents were very involved in wherever it was that we lived. So the fact that, I talk to anybody and I want to find out what's happening in the neighborhood and I want to see what's going on is just part of my nature, right? So I'm always at the table. And then, it's another thing that helped me too, and this isn't an advertisement for them, but when I was in New York City and even here, I'm completely alone. I have no family, right? So it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So Meetup, the Meetup groups,
Yeah.
really helped me. And that's kind of like what happened. I found a group here, Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition, which is the neighborhood group here that's trying to get more folks to, think about what they're eating, more active transportation. That's where I found the whole biking thing, right? So now it's just, we need to keep growing this. And then I was invited to go to the National Bike Summit in Washington, D.C. A couple of years into that, I got an award for joyful enthusiasm. When I got up there, I was like, joyful enthusiasm? I didn't realize that there were different levels of enthusiasm. But anyway, it was more of an acknowledgement of the people that were there and how they brought me into the community. So it wasn't until I started biking that I found my people. Some folks in Boston are like, why do you keep going to that? People that look like me, Black folks here. Why do you keep going to that? It's just a bunch of white people. And I said, because if I do keep going, it's always going to be a bunch of white people. So now I'm on the board. My congresswoman is very much in support of all transportation. So when she calls and says, Vivian, can you come to Washington, D.C. for a day and talk to the staff members of the members of Congress about biking? That's where I'm like, okay, I have a seat at the table now, right? Because of all the people she could ask, she asked me. But I'm also working closely with the city. It used to be that anytime there was a conversation at any of the community meetings about transportation, my friends in the city were like, Vivian, are you going to be there? And I'm like, yes, I will be there. Because they needed to have one ally in the room. But then it started becoming that after they did their presentation, like the leader of the neighborhood association would ask me, Vivian, what do you think? We need to hear from you. I'm the one that the reporters call. I'm the one that students that are doing some research program or something, and I call, and I absolutely love it. And I say yes to all of them. There's some people that are like, why is it always Vivian? It's always Vivian because Vivian doesn't say no. And my story is a little bit different than other folks. So I'm challenging other bikies and I'm saying we need to come up with like a monthly happy hour every couple of weeks. And we need to go to these businesses. So there's, bars and things like that, or places that we can stop in and have coffee. We need to show them that we are part of the community and not just racing through their community, which is no different than what my neighbors say about people driving through their street as a cut through. And one of the things that they wanted to change was a bus lane, a dedicated bus lane, which we have the advantage of being able to use, but it was not primarily for us, right? So this like standing up with posters and resistance, that's not my style. Like when I was asked to be the bike mayor by the different advocacy groups, I'm like, that's not me. I'm not like I'm like, can we have a conversation about this? Or let me show you what this looks like, or come and ride with me. And that's what they said. That was why they wanted me to be the bike mayor. Really wholeheartedly believe that the city is trying to make things better. I may not agree with absolutely everything, but they're members of my community. Those women taught me how to ride a bicycle, right? So I'm more connected to them and I will let them know. Like when I'm going to DC, I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to DC. What do I need to know? What do you want me to ask? So I try to get from the folks here, like, what is it that I should be asking about, right? Because I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a planner. They're not our enemy. All those people that work in the transportation department, most of the younger set, they don't own cars and they get around on a bike or on a bus.
We have the same thing here. I absolutely adore our Department of Active Transportation staff. I do think that the politicians need to shift some of that money to make active transportation a priority. So that is part of the issue, and that's part of the reason why I call out the politicians. I mean, the world is burning. People are broke. What more reason do we need to shift our priorities and use that money for active transportation rather than just more car lanes?
Yeah. So let me tell you quickly about where I have been invited to the table. So this project, this Blue Hill Lab that I keep talking about, is it's 3 lanes, and then the buses have to deal with the lane. And so they're always running behind. And I know this because before I rode my bike, I would take some of those buses. There are a lot of people that depend on those buses. $15 million have been allocated to redo that whole entire stretch of Blue Hill Avenue and make that a center running bus lane. We had multiple community engagement opportunities in person. I was actually a paid contractor on that project. I was getting on the bus and talking to people on the bus about, do you even know this project is happening? And they didn't. My neighbors hate it. The bike lanes are not for us. They never see anybody that looks like us. But the thing is, everyone agrees that the traffic is terrible. So the city comes up with a plan, and then my neighbors are like, you guys don't know what you're talking about, right? This is ridiculous. You obviously don't live here. I challenge my neighbors to think differently about it and realize this is not to make life difficult for you. It's to make it safer for all of us and for the planet. And I tell them, look around. You are in your car by yourself, and so are all these other people. They're the reason why the bus runs late. So putting it in the center of they remove the median, they should have priority because they're carrying a lot more people than you by yourself.
This podcast is brought to you by me. I wrote a book called That'll Never Work Here. It's coming out on October 28, and you can pre-order it from wherever you get your books. You can also support me by going to pattybikes.com/podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, and make it their problem too. I do have a few rapid fire questions before we wrap up.
Yes, I'm excited about these.
So great. So one of them is, if you were a bicycle, what kind of bicycle would you be?
I'm thinking of the one that we had that we shared that was like a banana bike. It had like the saddle. Well, we didn't call it a saddle. The seat and the handlebars were, which is funny because I've seen older men now that kind of have them almost like it's like a motorcycle kind of handlebar thing that they're riding. And it's so funny because I'm like, that was a bike that we used to ride as girls when we were little, right? But I think it would be that just because it's just very chill. You don't have to worry about gears or anything like that. So
The second question is, what is your superpower?
I'm not afraid to talk to people. And even though one thing about when I was on that billboard, I'm on the bus and I'm coming on the bus and there's a guy sitting next to me and it was like the billboard was right there and it would get a little freaky sometimes because I was like, oh my God. Right? And I don't remember if it was like the first time I saw it or very early on, but I said to the guy that was sitting next to me, he was some young kid. I said, "What do you think of that billboard?" And he didn't say it, but his reaction was like, "I don't know you. Why are you talking to me?" And I said, "That's me up there." And he was like, "What? Really? Oh my God, that's crazy." And then I was like, "Do you ride a bike?" And he's like, "Well, I have one." And I said, "Well, look, there's information up there. You couldn't read it, but about resources that the city offers or whatever." And that is how I start the conversation with everyone. Do you ride a bike?
That is a really great superpower. I love it. You
And
know
then
what?
it just
I'm going to
goes
start
on
doing
from
that
there.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the third one is a book recommendation by a female author. You know this one.
I have two. All right.
Okay.
Inclusive transportation is
Oh, I've heard about this one by
Veronica
Veronica
O.
Davis.
Right?
Yes.
So she's a civil engineer, Black woman. I had the pleasure of meeting her at the National Bike Summit, and I've gone to a couple of webinars. She's very real, really, really sweet. Love, love, love. And it's for the professionals on how to engage with the community, how to think of having conversations with people that this is not an experience that they've had. All right.
Right.
And this one is by a fellow board member from the League of American Bicyclists, Anna, and I'm going to kill her last name because I don't
Oh,
remember.
Anna Zieverts. Everyone recommends
Zieverts.
that one. Yes,
So
when
she's on
driving
the
is not an
board.
option.
She's
Yes.
on the board, and so when driving is not an option. And the interesting thing is that I've made it an option not to drive. But hearing from a person who does not have the option to drive or not is really interesting. It's actually made me think like, oh my God, I'm really privileged in the sense that I can decide this is the way I'm going to go today, right?
You can decide, exactly. A lot of people, when we talk about riding bikes, they say, oh, you're so privileged, people who have disabilities, they have to drive. And I'm like, you have to rethink that. That's not always an option. They may not be able to ride a bike, but they're not always able to drive either. So we need to start providing
Right.
these options. Well, thank you very much, Vivian. It was so great
No, this was
chatting
fun.
with you.
This is fun.
We'll have to check in again.
Definitely.
What's next for you?
What's next for me is now the state has a program for an initiative for to get folks e-bikes. And I'm really, really hoping to go on to that. It's with the state's advocacy group because I speak Spanish. And there's a whole group of people in Western Mass that we need to get on bikes that are my age. I'm the one that's like helping promote this program, but I don't have an e-bike.
It really was life-changing for me because I was able to ride in winter. And for a lot of people, it's the difference between deciding to bike or not to bike.
Oh yeah, I'm 100% supporter, but I don't want another piece of equipment. So I am thatbikelady@gmail.com. And then I'm on Instagram, it's thatbikelady. And then I am trying to get off of the other one and move to Blue Sky, and it will still be the same thing.
Thank you all for listening, and thank you most of all to the wonderful people who support me on Patreon so they can hear their names spoken with a Brazilian accent. Thank you, Michael, Andrew, Nikki, Halls Emporium, Tim, Lucas, Linda, Rod, Julia, David, Stephanie, Jason, Cassie, and this week's new supporter, Skitch and Jamie Truffin. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. For now, that's her problem. Just go to pattybikes.com. Oh my God. That was janky, all right.